So, hi, Carrie. Thanks for joining me on Behind the Build. I'm Paul Drake, and this podcast is all about getting to know or getting real insights rather from business leaders in housing, manufacturing, and construction. There's no scripts, there's no sugarcoating, and it's great exposure for you and your organisation. Here's how I'd like to structure our conversation this morning, stroke this afternoon. I want to understand your background, the trends that you're seeing in industry, whether that's technology, market shifts, operational changes, the challenges that you're facing right now, and where you'd like to take the business over the next 6 to 12 months. We'll wrap up at the end with any insights that might be valuable for both of us. Does that sound good?
Sounds great, and thanks for having me.
Excellent. No problem. So it'll probably take about 30 to 40 minutes, depending on the length of your answers. So let's get straight into it then. So if you wouldn't mind telling me a bit about yourself, Carrie, what's your role, and how did you end up in this position?
Absolutely. I'm the executive director for a nonprofit organization here in Des Moines, Iowa called Home Inc. It stands for Home Opportunities Made Easy Incorporated. We're the oldest housing nonprofit organization in the Des Moines metro area. And we focus on housing counseling. So we're a HUD certified housing counseling agency, as well as housing development. We're a community housing development organization, both nonprofit statuses that require us to have a board structure that holds us accountable to the community that we serve. Um,
Excellent.
I came here with this is my first experience in the nonprofit sector. So I come from the for-profit world. I had 13 years of experience in property management, multifamily, affordable housing, office, commercial, retail, storage. And then I spent about 3 years in workforce housing development as well before I was recruited to this role to provide that perspective to the organization.
Excellent. So how do the two differ then, other than the obvious things? So non-profit and profit. What's the key differences?
Really, the biggest difference that I articulate to people is that I now report to a board instead of an individual sole proprietor. I've almost always worked in small business. I started my career very on in the corporate world and learned a lot from that experience. But from then, I've always worked in small business, and nonprofit and small business are very similar in that you're always running on a bootstrap team. There's more work than there are people, and everyone wears every hat when necessary. So those things all remain the same. It's just who you report to that changes.
Oh, the joys of running a small business.
Absolutely.
Um, so I'm guessing there isn't a typical day in the life of Carrie, but if you could sort of nail it down, what would that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of my activities involve working on fundraising, so that would be different in nonprofit sector as well. It's my job to make sure our team gets paid, which it aligns with small business. We just do it in a different way. A lot of grant writing and fundraising proposals. I do a lot of sharing of information with the public, engaging with folks, whether it be one-on-one conversations or panel discussions, a lot of tabling events, sharing information with the community about the work that we do. And then, of course, working with our team here to make sure that our processes and procedures allow us to do the job to the best of the ability.
Hmm. So how many hats do you wear each day, would you say? How many different hats?
Goodness, 5 or 6 on a given day.
Yeah. It's you really should have those stacked up on the wall and wear the different one each time you're doing that different role, just so
That is a
people can
great
appreciate
idea.
how many
Yes.
jobs you've got to do and the difficulty that brings.
That's a great idea. Yeah, every morning I get up and my husband says, "Well, what are you doing today?"
Just point to the hats. Today is
Right.
this range of hats.
Yep, exactly.
So within the industry, Carrie, then, are you seeing any sort of trends right now, especially around technology and operational efficiencies in delivering the housing
Yeah, I
needs?
would say, the biggest trend we've seen, especially since COVID. So I was working in workforce housing development during and throughout COVID. And since that time, the cost to construct housing went up significantly during that time, and it really hasn't sort of realigned. It's come down just a little bit, but it's very expensive to build housing. And we're dealing with rising not only material costs but labor costs. So we're required to do a lot of labor and wage reporting. We're required to do a lot of reporting and documentation on where materials are sourced from. And so all of that adds to the administrative cost of an affordable housing project, in addition to the other rising costs. So those are some of the challenges that we've been dealing with. We've been exploring different ways that we can attempt to consolidate some of that workload. So, can we source materials? One of the focuses is Build America, Buy America. Can we consolidate where we're sourcing materials? One of the options that we're exploring is modular construction an effective alternative? Obviously it reduces the time that construction on site takes. There are some energy efficiency um, gains that can be made with a modular approach. You're controlling labor costs. You're certainly controlling weather, and so costs that way. But also, we're looking at what can that approach do for us from a compliance standpoint. So, can we rely on that resource as a supplier to help us ensure that our materials are made in the USA, or that we are complying with those? You're controlling the number of different subcontractors that are on that project in that case, and so it's a lot easier also to make sure that we're adhering with the labor and wage requirements and so on. So that's something that we're exploring from that standpoint. Also, just looking at building partnerships to leverage better costs.
Mm.
So how can we streamline our processes? How can we use technology software, different software products to streamline our compliance, our lien waiver process, making sure that our subcontractors get paid and they can sign those lien waivers electronically, finding ways to pull even a construction draw together more quickly and efficiently so that it takes 20 minutes instead of 2 days to put a draw together. Just looking for efficiencies in those types of ways.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. So it kind of moved me on to my next question. Really, are you using any technology? Are you using AI? Are you exploring it? What you're doing? Are you seeing any sort of digital tools enhance the industry?
Yeah, I know on our front, so we're in a really great position in that our director of development has an engineering background. So he's working on the construction side now, but he's got an engineering background. And so he's got an engineering mindset in how do we make things more efficient. So we've played around with different types of technology. We're testing out Monday.com to help us with sort of workflow progression and tracking and Gantt charting, and also automating some of our processes. So, can we automate the process of when we mark that one trade has completed a part of the job? Can we automate the system so that the subs on the next trade are automatically notified and we're not spending time making phone calls to call, setting up those types of processes? We're sort of beta testing a new software with a partner of ours to help us with that draw process. So it's a draw based software that is managing all of our invoices, all of our lien waivers, allows us to send the lien waivers electronically, allows us to quickly and efficiently compile the draw requests. So those are the types of things we're looking at on the construction side. Um, I know he is playing around with using AI to try to help sort of code a proprietary software, if you will, to take sort of our use of Monday.com one step higher and see if there's something that we can create that addresses our processes specifically. And I would say on the housing counseling side, I'm also really interested to explore how we can use AI to make our work there more efficient. We do a lot of tenant counseling, and that's pretty labor intensive. And a lot of the inquiries we receive are from people who just need a question answered.
Yeah,
So how can we create, an AI based agent, if you will, who can answer some of those basic questions and then turn that client over to a housing counselor who's more skilled and versed and can do some actual counseling if the person who's calling needs more assistance. But can we filter out some of those just information requests using AI is sort of where we're looking in the future.
it does seem to be a good use of it, where the first line is AI and then second line is a human. Um,
Right.
yeah. It's good. So, what do you do in terms of health and safety? Just curious because it's quite a big thing over here in construction. Do you have to do lots of risk assessments before you do any work on site? Is that a is that a burdensome thing?
Really, the biggest thing is environmental review when we're using federal funds. And I wouldn't say it's overly burdensome. I think the biggest challenge is that a lot of the development that we do is in a metropolitan area. It's right in the city of Des Moines. And one of the limitations that we have is on the noise level. So if we can't use federal funds in a project that exceeds 65 decibels. And as you can imagine, when you're near roadways and airports and all of those things, it's really challenging to find infill sites to develop on that meet those criteria. So that's one of the challenges that we are continually faced with and working to work around. But short of that, we're a general contractor. And so, a lot of the just health and safety factors for the folks who are working on our job sites really that burden ends up falling to the subcontractors that we're hiring to do that work, just in partnership.
Okay. Are you seeing any uncertainties? When I put my teeth back in, sorry. Let's start that again. Are you seeing any uncertainties in the industry? Are you seeing? Is there anything you're concerned with?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the affordable housing industry overall is facing a lot of uncertainty historically here in the US, at least for the past 30 to 40 years. Affordable housing development has largely relied on federal programs, the low income housing tax credit program being one of the largest. So, one of the things that keeps me up at night is how that interplay is going to affect the ability to actually use low income housing tax credits to drive affordable housing development. Um, you know, the way that tax credits generate funds for the development of projects is that the ability to use those credits, of course, is sold to corporations or high net wealth individuals. And so if their tax liabilities are drastically reduced, the incentive for them to purchase those tax credits to offset those liabilities is also significantly reduced. So, historically, we've seen tax credits sell for as much as 92 cents on the dollar. And I'm hearing projections that that might drop to the low to mid 70s. So you can imagine, if a developer is only getting 70 cents on the dollar for those credits instead of 90 cents on the dollar for those credits, that's significantly less investment that can go into the development of the project. And with the other sources of federal funding that are typically used as gap sources, for example, home funds or CDBG funds, at risk, and most likely significantly reduced, I'm not sure where those gap funding sources are going to come from. So I think the biggest uncertainties in our industry and the affordable housing industry at all is, are we going to be able to continue to put funding stacks together to make these projects possible? I have a colleague that presented recently about a project he was working on. His funding stack for his affordable housing project, which included tax credits, was 13 sources deep. So he had to stack 13 funding sources on top of each other to make this affordable housing project financially pencil out. And that takes a lot of time and energy and becomes even more and more expensive. So, um, that keeps me up at night. Are we going to be able to continue to develop affordable housing? And then in the same vein, even if we are, those programs have a finite window of time. So the low-income housing tax credit program, typically the compliance period is 30 years. So that means the affordability of that project, 30 years feels like a long time, but in the life of a building, it really isn't. So after 30 years, that affordability will expire, and the owner could choose to resyndicate and keep that project affordable, or they could choose to pull it out and it becomes a market rate project. And then what happens to those affordable units in our community?
Lots of challenges, Carrie. Are there any opportunities in there? Is there a positive in any of this?
Yeah, I definitely think so. So we talked a little bit about alternative construction methods and, can modular or SIPs or panels, or, changing the way that we build projects on site? Can we reduce costs in that way? So I think that's something that will continue to be explored. I know there's even exploration with 3D printing, and what can that do from a cost standpoint, and a time to market standpoint. Another thing that our organization is having the opportunity to participate in right now is the concept of a community land trust. So there are, at this point, hundreds of community land trusts throughout the country and throughout the world. This is a new idea to our metropolitan area. And what excites me about the community land trust model is that it takes that affordability period and installs it permanently. So whereas when we use existing programs to create affordable housing, there's a finite period of affordability like we talked about before. Sometimes it's 5 years, sometimes it's 10, sometimes it's 30. But when these housing units are placed into a community land trust, they become permanently affordable. So now, even as the available subsidy for new construction decreases, we know we're not losing that pool of affordable units. Anything we are able to add is contributing rather than just replacing units that are expiring in affordability. So I'm really excited to see that initiative come to our region. And Home Inc. is fortunate to be acting as the operational steward to help set up our community land trust. So we're providing the staffing resources and helping facilitate the board and the committee work to get our local community land trust going. We'll be bringing the first couple of single family homeownership opportunities into the community land trust at the beginning of 2026. And we're really excited to use that to sort of catapult and build the portfolio that we hope long term will include hundreds of homeownership units in our community, as well as rental units and sort of every type of housing unit possible, so that we can continue to add to the stock of affordable housing and really maintain that. So that's an innovation I'm really excited about. I would say another thing that I'm excited about that's going on in our community is that I think there's been a realization that we need to work together to find solutions. And so we've got some initiatives going on right now in the community that are bringing multiple nonprofits together, multiple business corporate partners together, funders, philanthropists, city leaders, county leaders, to really come together and say, what are the issues that we're dealing with, whether it's homelessness prevention, whether it's affordable housing development, what are the barriers we're facing, and how can we work together to find solutions, fundraise on more of a mass scale, instead of me
Mm.
spending hours and hours each day writing 10 grants for $5,000 each. How can we come together as a community to really raise an impactful amount of funding that can then be distributed with less strings attached, less reporting requirements, less cumbersome application requirements, to support the work that actually needs to be done rather than spinning our wheels on administrative tasks. So there's a lot of that work going on in our community right now too, and I'm excited about that.
Yeah, good. I'm glad there's more excitement in there than the challenges that you currently face, because there does seem to be a lot of challenges going on.
Yes.
So where would you say the organisation sits within the market, within your locality?
What do you mean by that?
In terms of its size, in terms of the other organisations that are doing a similar thing, where do you fit in that sort of,
Where do we fit?
I wouldn't say
Like,
hierarchy, but in terms of that sort of
sure.
ecosystem,
Yeah.
if you like?
I think intentionally, our community is really supportive of making sure that we're reducing redundancy as much as possible. So I would say that, as it sits, I feel pretty confident in saying that our organization is the only organization filling this specific niche that we're filling. So we're one of only about 10 HUD certified housing counseling agencies in the state, and we're one of only 2 or 3 that are actually doing any sort of tenant counseling. There's only a handful doing true homeless prevention, upstream homeless prevention, rather than, the rehousing activities. Um, and we're one of a few in a network doing pre-purchase counseling and homebuyer education as well. On the housing development side, we're really targeting folks who aren't being served by any other part of the market. So, our other nonprofit home builder in the community really focuses on extremely low income families, very low income families getting folks that are living below 50% of area median income into homeownership opportunities, and they support that on an ongoing basis. Whereas we're really serving with homeownership opportunities kind of that middle group of folks, the people who are stuck in a rental situation, who really have the capacity to become homeowners, but they need housing counseling and they need a bit of subsidy to get them in that position to where they can afford to become homeowners. And so that's the market, the niche of the market that we're serving. And we really don't have any competition in that market sector, which is, um, we could do a whole lot more if we had more resources. So there's definitely more work to be done. There's more room in this service part, but we're not competing, and we're in a position where that means that we really get to work together with the other nonprofits who are doing similar work because we're all serving slightly different populations.
Yeah, that's good. So what would you say the organization does extraordinarily well? If there was one thing you could pin that on, what would it be?
Yeah, I would say we do a really great job of supporting tenants and landlords in maintaining housing stability. We play a neutral role in helping resolve some of the issues that come up between tenants and landlords. The other thing is, I think we do a really good job of preparing our home buyers for homeownership. When we work through counseling with them before they purchase the home, we're looking at their budget overall. We're making sure that they have the financial capacity to manage emergencies when they arise. That, if the roof leaks or if the furnace breaks down, that they've got the financial capacity to weather that. And we are here as a resource to help them navigate additional funding sources or resources if they run upon a challenge. So I think we do a really good job of preparing people to be successful long term in their homeownership position. And the homes that we're building align with that. So we use licensed subcontractors to do all of our work. We use quality materials. So when we put a family that is new to homeownership into an opportunity, we're giving them a good start and a solid foundation in a home that is stable, well built, and meets their needs, has all of the appliances and resources they need to be successful long term.
Nice. Do you hear much from your tenants? Do they say good things about you? Is there a common thing that they say that's good, positive?
Yes, particularly the folks that are able to become homeowners through the services that we provide. We have the opportunity to capture their stories in some of our newsletters and some of our annual events. And the common theme is, but not for our programming, they wouldn't have had the opportunity to become homeowners. They would have been perpetually stuck in a rental situation and would not have had the ability then to build wealth that can be passed on to their children, to the next generation. So we continually hear those stories of just it's just an opportunity to build equity within our community, to give the folks who would probably not otherwise have the opportunity to build generational wealth through homeownership the chance to do so.
Yeah, that's good. You've probably touched on a lot of this already, but where would you like to take the organization over the next sort of 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, I think our work over the next 6 to 12 months is really going to focus on helping to support the community land trust so that the units that we build and that our partners build and the funds that are raised can be affordable in perpetuity, and that we can make sure that we include all types of housing. But also, as I mentioned, really working to leverage AI and technology to be able to make the human team members that we have make their time more efficiently used, um, so that they can serve more people with the time and resources that they have.
Yeah, good. What's the biggest operational challenge then to do you see in achieving those objectives? Because there's always a challenge in there, isn't there?
Yes, funding. The availability of funding. It's all reliant upon. I will share Our housing counseling program runs at a financial deficit. So we are in the red continually year after year. It is our housing development activities as a nonprofit developer, the general contracting and GC fees that we generate are what help supports our programming. And so, if we had funding to bring on 3 more counselors, I could keep them busy. If we had funding to build more homes, we could hire more people and build more homes because there are more people who need homes. So I think that really the biggest challenge is and will always be limited access to funding.
So that probably brings me on to my next question then is, so what's been the biggest struggle? And would you say it is funding, finding people, that sort of thing? Well, it probably is funding, isn't it?
Yeah, really funding. We've been really fortunate, I think because we're a mission-based organization, we've been really fortunate in keeping dedicated and committed people. Our turnover is really low. I've had a great experience in recruiting. We currently have an accounting role that we've been working to fill. From a human resources standpoint, that's the biggest challenge. There is a lack of skilled accounting folks in the workforce right now. So that's probably from a, like I said, from a personnel standpoint, it's the accounting skill set that is lacking. Um, but um, Otherwise, we've had great stability and very low turnover, and we haven't really had a lot of challenges with that piece of it.
Good. So from a personal point of view then, Carrie, what does achieving your objectives 6 to 12 months mean to you?
Yeah, I think it's I think the goal for a lot of us who choose to work in affordable housing and or the nonprofit sector is to leave the world a better place than we found it, right? We want to do work that's meaningful and impactful and changes our community for the better long term. And I think as we work on the initiatives in the next 6 to 12 months to really stabilize the community land trust and to empower our housing counseling team to reach as many people as effectively as possible. I think that's what I'm excited about, is really leaving that legacy when I'm long gone, that those programs will remain in place and continue to benefit our community overall.
Yeah, it sounds really rewarding. So we've come to the end of our podcast, Carrie. So it's been fantastic. Thanks for speaking so candidly with the challenges and opportunities that you're seeing. I've really enjoyed it. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Paul. I've really enjoyed the conversation as well. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks, Carrie.